a drill instructor by the name of Fitch begins speaking negatively about Swofford's father and how shameful his father was while serving in the United States Army. In a sequence that is evocative of Full Metal Jacket, Swofford is subsequently seen being abused by a drill instructor when he is a recruit in the United States Marine Corps boot camp. This made him realize that joining the Army was a bad decision. When Swoff and the other recruits he had just completed basic training arrived at Camp Pendleton in 1989, he was gazing at a photo of his girlfriend as they were traveling there. Swofford is welcomed by the receiving officer, who then inquires about the nature of Swofford's given name. He mentioned the fact that his great-grandfather had been a member of the same camp in the 19th century. After that, he was posted to Gulf Company, which the receiving officer described as being full of mentally deficient people. It was then that the more senior Marines performed a terrible joke on Swoff in the form of a prank. Swoff was tied in his bed to accomplish by burning into his skin with a hot iron the letters USMC, which stand for the United States Marine Corps. Tattoos are a common kind of body modification among Marines, and this one is particularly popular. The sight of the iron causes him to pass out. After regaining consciousness, he is relieved to see that the senior Marines have replaced the hot iron with a different iron at room temperature later that evening. He is welcomed by Troy, who says to him, "Welcome to the suck." He does it in a cold and collected manner. Swofford meets the affable Staff Sergeant Sykes, a veteran in the Marine Corps, who extends an invitation to Swofford to attend the Scout Sniper training, which was formerly known as the Surveillance and Target Acquisition course, inside the bathroom. Swoff is ill and has been staying in the restroom of the clinic for a significant amount of time. After Sykes departed, Swoff was given instructions to report to the training on Monday. Later that afternoon, Swoff is late for his bugle tryout by Staff Sergeant Sykes at 0600. He is surprised when he is just played around by Sykes and asks Swoff to play using his mouth only. Swoff was, once again, taken advantage of in this way. The rigorous Corps training gets underway for Swoff and the other recruits. They put in a lot of time running, hiding in the bush, and practicing their sniper skills. After enduring grueling training sessions that resulted in the death of a fellow recruit, he was eventually promoted to the position of sniper and was given Troy as his spotter. The newly promoted recruits were given instructions on how to perform a rifle pledge. Not long after that, Iraq launched an invasion of Kuwait, and shortly after that, Swofford's battalion was sent to the Persian Gulf through a commercial airplane to take part in Operation Desert Shield. During their meeting with Lieutenant Colonel Kaczynski, the battalion commander, they were given the order to capture the target called Saddam Hussein. The defense of the oil fields is their primary responsibility. The unit is then transported to its base of operations. Marines are ordered to drink water, wait, scout the surrounding region, and familiarize themselves with the dry climate, despite the fact that they are really ready to engage in some actual battle. The Marines wear their gas suits while training under the scorching heat in the desert. They are now 62 days in the desert. A number of the Marines are concerned that their wives or girlfriends back home may cheat on them during the lengthy wait. Photos of women who have abandoned their romantic ties with members of the unit are displayed on a board that is visible to the public. Reporters from the field are conducting interviews with Marines in order to learn more about their locations, personal lives, and experiences serving as soldiers in Saudi Arabia. Even though it was 112 degrees outside, Sykes insisted that his team play American football in their NBC uniforms so that the field reporters could see how well they performed in the heat. During the time that the cameras are rolling, the game devolves into a boisterous dogpile, and a few of the Marines engage in light-hearted miming of sensual activities. After being humiliated by his platoon's impolite behavior and lack of discipline, Sykes orders the cameras and crew to leave the area. As a further form of punishment, the Marines are made to construct and dismantle a gigantic pyramid made of sandbags while it is raining later that evening. After their heavy punishment, the squad went back to their camp and received some letters from their loved ones. Swoff received a letter from her girlfriend, Christina. He receives a piece of news that her girlfriend has a new friend, and Swofford starts to have his own suspicions that his fiancée is cheating on him or will start doing so shortly. The most public and humiliating of these events happens to Detman, who finds out that an innocent-looking copy of The Deer Hunter on VHS sent from his wife is actually a homemade pornographic movie tape of her hooking up with their neighbor. This was apparently made as retribution for Detman's own promiscuity. The men are all seated to watch the tape. Fergus, a member of Swofford's squad, inadvertently started a fire that spread to a tent and a box of flares when they were celebrating Christmas in a spontaneous manner. Swofford is to be held responsible for what happened since he was meant to be keeping watch but instead had Fergus take his place. Swofford suffers the consequences of this action by falling from the rank of Lance Corporal to that of Private and being made to do the humiliating chore of burning feces. Swafford is momentarily driven to the edge of mental collapse as a result of the punishments, the heat, and the boredom. These factors, together with his suspicions of his girlfriend's unfaithfulness and his feelings of loneliness, contribute to his condition. Fergus, a fellow Marine, is the target of his threats, and he almost fires his weapon. Following the long fight that took place in the desert, the ground battle known as Operation Desert Storm was initiated by the coalition forces, and the Marines were sent to the border between Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Since the crew did not want any adverse effects after the attack, they were each given a PB pill to take in place of the nerve agents. They will be protected from the chemical reactions that are caused by the bombs and weaponry. In the meanwhile, the group started excavating their hiding places in preparation for the impending assault. Swafford learns from Sykes, in a brief moment just before the action starts, that Troy hid his criminal past when he enlisted in the military and that he would be dismissed following the conclusion of the conflicts. Troy is then given the USMC brand on his legs. As a result of an unintentional air assault by friendly forces, the Marines are now advancing across the desert with no opposition from opponents on the ground. U.S. vehicles may become targets of friendly fire from an A-10 close air support aircraft, which can result in civilian deaths. The forces go forward down the highway of death, which is littered with burned corpses and the wreckage of cars that have been set on fire as a result of the bombing campaign. Later, the Marines come upon flaming oil wells that were torched by the fleeing Iraqis. They try to dig sleeping holes despite the deluge of crude oil that is falling from the sky. Before they were able to kill them, Sykes gave the order for the squad to relocate to a location where the wind would shield them from the oil rain. Swaff finds out that Fowler has defiled an Iraqi body while Swaff is in the process of digging fresh sleeping holes. This realization pushes Swaff to the point where he wants to attack Fowler. On the other hand, he does nothing more than removing the corpse and bury it somewhere. Finally, Swafford and Troy have been assigned a task that involves warfare. Their mission is to eliminate 2 Iraqi officers who are believed to be hiding in a control tower at an airport that has been damaged by fighting. The pair takes up positions in an abandoned structure, but just as Swafford zeroes in on one of the officers with his scope, another squad of Marines emerges and calls in an air attack. In an effort to finally get a kill, Troy begs the officer in command, played by Dennis Haysbert, to allow them to take the shot. As a result of his pleading being ignored, Troy spirals into a pit of despair and begins to cry. After just a few moments, American airplanes begin to strike the airport. Swafford and Troy lose track of time while standing about in a stupor at the location, causing them to miss their pickup. As darkness falls, they make an attempt to explore the desert but end up getting lost. They are terrified by screams that can be heard in the distance, and when they become aware that the noises are emanating from the other side of a hill, they readjust their weapons and get ready to descend. They hear voices and see what seems to be an encampment in the distance, but as they get closer, they realize it is their base camp, and the voices are Marines. They find out that the war is finished, and then they celebrate this news by having a bonfire. There are a lot of Marines. Swafford reveals to Troy in a scenario that is pivotal to the plot that he has never shot his weapon, to which Troy responds, "You can do it now." After that, he empties the magazine of his sniper rifle into the night sky, and the other Marines, who had also never had the opportunity to fire their weapons, follow his lead and do the same thing. The movie ends with soldiers making their way back home. The soldiers participate in a jubilant procession through the towns to celebrate their triumph. When a ragged Vietnam veteran, who is probably still suffering from the horrors of the war, hops aboard their bus and congratulates them all, the atmosphere on board is immediately thrown off. Swafford and his fellow soldiers were released and sent on their own ways not long after they arrived back in the United States. Swafford travels back to the house he shares with his girlfriend, only to find out that she is seeing someone else. Fowler is seen spending time with a female at a bar, Kruger is observed in a corporate boardroom, Escobar is an employee at a supermarket, Cortez is a father of 3 children.